Good to see all you brave people here tonight. Good to see you folk too. We're both brave, aren't we? I don't know if you've noticed. Well, actually, let me just introduce myself for those of you who don't know me. I'm Denise, and I seem to be here more and more. If you haven't met me, come tap me on the shoulder at supper. I can't promise I'll recognise you because I have this thing called face blindness, which gets me into all sorts of awkward situations. I find it really hard to recognise people. It's even worse with masks. But I would really like to meet you anyway. So, yeah, I don't know if you've noticed, but fear is on the rise in the last couple of weeks. Have you felt it? Omicron ripping through the community, and hospitalisations are rising. And I wonder if perhaps you, like me, have felt that little bit of anxiety when you read the news and you wonder where all of this is going and is it ever going to end? Omicron is everywhere. By now you probably know someone who's had it. And so you can't help but wonder, well, will I get it? Will my loved ones get it? What about my immunocompromised friend? What's going to happen? Will we be okay? What if we're not? Other fears surface as well. Is our health system going to cope? Particularly if you're a worker in that health system. What happens if it decimates my workplace? What sort of pressure and expectation is going to be on me if half of my workmates are off? What will I have to deal with? What's the next variant going to bring? Now, if you're a Christian, maybe you feel a little bit guilty about feeling anxious because we're not supposed to feel anxious, right? Fear gets a bad rap in Christian circles. It's seen as something maybe to be a little bit ashamed of, something that you need to rid yourself of, something maybe even is associated with evil or with Satan. Satan's the one who brings fear, right? We shouldn't be fearful. We should just trust in God. So if you are fearful, then you must not be trusting in God, right? That's the logical conclusion. After all, 2 Timothy 1:7 insists, along with ubiquitous posts that keep appearing on my Facebook page, that God has not given us a spirit of fear, but of power and love and self-control. And I agree. We have a powerful God who loves us, and that surely must make a difference to how we deal with fear. But even while I'm agreeing, this little voice in the back of my head is clearing its throat and pointing out inconvenient truths like, well, if a ferocious dog was running towards you, Denise, with white flecks of saliva flying from its snapping jaws, is it okay to feel fear? I mean, it's probably a good idea to embrace your fear at that point, right? And run like hell. Because it doesn't matter whether you have a spirit of fear or power, love and self-control in abundance, that dog is going to maul you. Fear's not all bad. It's true, the Bible does have a lot to say about not being fearful and anxious. But like everything we read in the Bible, we have to reflect on what's being said instead of just pulling verses out of context and applying it to whatever we want to apply it to. That 2 Timothy verse 7 verse, for example, that's an encouragement from Paul to his apprentice Timothy to be bold when it comes to talking about Jesus. I'm not sure whether Paul would have applied it to a pit bull or a global pandemic. I don't know. So let's talk about fear. It seems like a good week to talk about fear. What it is, how to respond to it, And what difference does faith make to the way that we think about fear? Before we get too far into this, I want to make it clear that I'm a biblical scholar, I'm a pastor, I'm an ordinary person with about 57 years of life experience. I'm not a psychologist, a counsellor, a psychiatrist, and I have no training in those fields. If you are currently under the care of a trusted professional, then you should listen to them. So with that proviso, I'm here to tell you that, contrary to popular opinion, fear is not something we should be trying to eliminate from our lives. No, fear is your friend. It is. Fear is your friend. It is a wonderfully helpful emotion. Embrace it. Fear is what helps you avoid being bitten by a venomous snake. It gives you wings when you need to escape from a dangerous situation. Fear can motivate you to put that seatbelt on when you get in your car, and that just might save your life. It has the potential to keep you away from destructive relationships. It stops you venturing into unsafe places in unknown cities. Basically, fear can save you from your own stupidity. It is a valuable thing to have. Fear is one of those tools that we have that helps us make good decisions. So it's not wise to stuff it down, to ignore it, pretend that we don't feel it. Rather, wisdom is not giving in to fear, but paying close attention to it, hearing what it has to say, and using those insights to your advantage. A global pandemic is something to fear. It's a big, scary thing. It just is. If you are elderly or have underlying health conditions or are immunocompromised, or you love someone in one of those categories, then fear of getting COVID seems like a pretty rational fear, really. Unfortunately, while fear is your friend and can be very helpful, it's also a bit of a blunt instrument. So the fear that you feel when you see a taipan, you may also experience when you see a harmless brown tree snake, or even a belt lying on the floor. If you've been bitten by a dog as a child, then fear may prevent you from experiencing the warmth of canine company that a loyal and friendly dog might offer. The damage of an abusive relationship might leave you fearful of any close relationships. Your fear of being hurt by others might drive you to try and control every relationship in your life, which may paradoxically chase others away. So living in constant fear of what might happen leaves you unable to enjoy the present moment. So how can we respond to fear in ways that are helpful and wise, rather than in ways that cause destruction and damage to ourselves and others? The following 3 tips, it's easy, just 3 tips. The following 3 tips do not come from with particular Bible verses attached. They come more from some of my own experiences of walking through fearful situations, but those experiences have been very much impacted by my faith. This faith that God is walking beside me all through my life. And so I simply offer them to you as 3 tips. They may be helpful, they may not be. You can take whatever is helpful and throw the rest away. The first one is do not ignore fear. Don't avoid eye contact with fear. Don't pretend it's not there, because if you turn away from it and run, it will come after you and it will hunt you down. You will not outrun fear. It will devour you even while you deny its very existence. Instead, turn and face it. Look at it in the eye. Stare it down. Don't blink. Feel it. Yep, feel it just coursing through your veins. I'm serious. But while you're feeling it coursing through your veins, stand your ground while it does. And if you do this, that fearsome, terrifying monster with its slathering jaws will slowly turn into a small, pitiful, puppy-like creature that just needs a cuddle. Remember that Dr. Seuss book, The Pants, about the pants that didn't have anybody in it? This is the inspiration for this tip, plus my own experiences. When it turns into a small, pitiful, puppy-like creature, just sit with it. Sit with it like you would sit with a frightened child, and keep it company until it doesn't need you to do that anymore. And at that point, you can ask it some questions to find out why it felt it needed to be so intimidating. It's often helpful to speak fear's name. Fears unspoken are fears that are really hard to deal with, but when you speak them out, something seems to change. Fears that are named are fears that are tamed. And I want to just say that I made that up. I didn't see it on an inspirational poster or anything, but I reckon it should go on an inspirational poster. Like maybe with a kitten hanging onto a branch or something, I don't know. Fears that are named are fears that are tamed. If you tell someone in spoken words, if you speak out what it is that you fear, it oftentimes puts fear into perspective. And it becomes easier to figure out what to do with this fear. Naming a fear helps you figure out, is this a fear that I could just brush away like a cobweb? Or is this a fear that's telling me that I need to take strong and decisive action to avoid a looming crisis? Speaking it out, talking it through, can help you work out what you should do about it. I wonder if you're familiar with the young adult author John Marsden. He wrote the Tomorrow When the War Began series. It's been made into a movie. I think Wally Lewis's son was one of the lead roles. I loved the series. I read it years ago. And there's a passage in this book that made a huge impact on me. I still remember it to this day, and it was years ago. So the premise of the book, if you don't know the series, is there's this group of Aussie teenagers who go away on a camping trip, and when they come back, they discover that Australia has been invaded, and they find themselves in the middle of a war. The enemy army are holding the people from their small rural town hostage in the showgrounds, and the teenagers need to get close to that boundary fence to see what the situation is. But of course, the showgrounds are heavily guarded, and it's lit by bright lights, making it a dangerous venture. Let me read what happens when they decide to go and investigate the showgrounds. We slipped across the road like shadows and moved around the corner. The light from the showground reached even here, faintly, but enough to make a difference. We stopped at its edge, feeling nervous. It was as though a single step into that light would immediately make us visible to a whole army of hostile watchers. It was frightening. That was the first moment at which I started to realise what true courage was. Up until then, everything had been unreal, like a night stalking game at a school camp. To come out of the darkness now would be to show courage of a type that I'd never had to show before, never even known about. I had to search my own mind and body to find if there was a new part of me somewhere. I felt that there was a spirit in me that could do this thing, but it was a spirit I hadn't known about. If I could only find it, I could connect with it. And then maybe, just maybe, I could start to defrost the fear that had frozen my body. Maybe I could do this dangerous and terrible thing. A single movement was my key to finding my spirit. There was a tree about 4 steps away, in front of me and to my left, well inside the zone of light from the showground. I suddenly made myself leave the darkness and go to it, in 4 quick light steps, a dance that surprised me, but made me feel a little lightheaded and proud. That's it, I thought. I've done it. It was a dance of courage. I felt then, and still feel now, that I was transformed by those 4 steps. At that moment, I stopped being an innocent rural teenager and started becoming someone else, a more complicated and capable person, a force to be reckoned with even, and not just a polite, obedient kid. That passage in that book made an impact on me that I've not forgotten to this day. What I realised from that story that I read so long ago is that courage is not the absence of fear, but taking action in the presence of fear. There's no shame in being afraid. Every rational person feels fear. But to choose to act, even when you're terrified, that is courage. And sometimes courage is found through acting on a decision to take a single step in a scary direction. Well, what difference does our faith make to fear? Well, if any writing makes it clear that faith and fear are not mutually exclusive, they exist together, it's the Psalms. We discover in the Psalms that faith does not eliminate fear, nor does it make scary situations go away, but faith helps us walk through fear. Think about Psalm 23. It's probably the most well-known psalm there is. Though I walk through the darkest valley, I will fear no evil. Why? For you are with me. Your rod and your staff reassure me. The picture is of a shepherd who's leading his flock through a dark, narrow ravine where predators might be lurking. In scary, life-threatening situations, we have the assurance that God walks with us, closer even than our own breath. I've had times in my life when I'm facing a frightening situation and I've felt absolutely confident that God is with me and I don't need to fear. But then there's Psalm 27. And I call this psalm the whistling in the dark psalm, because it starts off with the psalmist expressing utter confidence in God. Listen to the first 3 verses. Maybe that's a bit small to see. The Lord is my light and my salvation. I fear no one. The Lord protects my life. I am afraid of no one. When evil men attack me to devour my flesh, when my adversaries and enemies attack me, they stumble and fall. Even when an army is deployed against me, I do not fear. Even when war is imminent, I remain confident. It just sounds like the psalmist, he's striding through that darkest valley with his head held high, right? And then you get to some of the later verses of the same psalm. Hear me, O Lord, when I cry out. Have mercy on me and answer me. Don't hide yourself from me. Don't push your servant away in anger. You were my deliverer. Don't leave me. Don't abandon me. Don't turn me over to my enemies. He seems to have developed a stutter. What started out with this confident assertion of faith at the beginning of the psalm now seems to be tinged with a little bit of nervousness. You will have mercy on me, right? You won't reject me, will you? You wouldn't leave me or abandon me, would you? You won't let my enemies win, will you? A psalm that goes from faith to fear. Now that's interesting. I love what Philip Yancey has to say about the Psalms. He says that the Bible is God's message to us. The Psalms is us speaking to God. I find that interesting. Here's the most interesting verse in that psalm. It's verse 13, and it comes after all of those little nervous bits. If I did not believe I would experience the goodness of the Lord in the land of the living, and then he doesn't finish the sentence. It's an if-then sentence. I bet if you're a teacher, you know that if-then. If something, something, then. It's an if-then sentence, but the then part of the sentence is missing. Now, our English translations add in some words to complete the sentence because it doesn't make sense otherwise, like, where would I be if I did not believe that I would experience the goodness of the Lord? Or, if I did not believe I would experience the goodness of the Lord, I would be lost. But those words aren't actually in the original psalm. It's an unfinished sentence. It's like the psalmist trails off and leaves his thoughts hanging because the thought that God might not come through for him is a thought that's just too terrifying to contemplate. I read a Jewish author on this psalm, and he put it like this. The absence of the then clause gives the impression that the speaker cannot bring himself to finish his sentence. His utterance brings him perilously close to an emotional place too dangerous to approach. The verse intends to make a statement of confidence, but the speaker cannot quite get the whole thing out. And that's what I love about the Psalms. They are so very real, so very relatable, so very human, seesawing from faith to fear and back again. At the end of this psalm, the psalmist takes himself in hand and speaks words of encouragement to himself and anyone else who might happen to stumble across this psalm. Wait for the Lord. Be strong and let your heart take courage. Wait for the Lord. The psalmist ends not with perfect confidence in God, nor with fear, but with hope. An expectant waiting on God. He tells himself in the midst of his fear to wait patiently and wait expectantly on God. That God will show up, even if he can't predict exactly what God is going to do. In the early church, psalms were probably read aloud during worship. because it does something to you, saying things out loud, especially saying things out loud together with other people. And even more so, if you're in a group of people that you feel you kind of belong here, and everyone around you, all those around you, are saying the same words as you are. And so today, in the midst of a pandemic, in the midst of rising case numbers, uncertainty about the future, here is an opportunity to express our trust in God, the all-powerful God who loves you and me. And so if you would like to, stand as you're able, and we're going to speak out the first 2 verses of the Bible reading that we had a little while ago. We're going to say these verses 3 times together. So let's try that and see what it does to us. So stand as you're able. We're going to slow right down on the we will not fear. Are you ready? God is our refuge and strength, an ever-present help in trouble. Therefore, we will not fear, though the earth give way and the mountains fall into the heart of the sea. God is our refuge and strength, an ever-present help in trouble. Therefore, we will not fear, though the earth give way and the mountains fall into the heart of the sea. God is our refuge and strength, an ever-present help in trouble. Therefore, we will not fear, though the earth give way and the mountains fall into the heart of the sea. Amen.